If I only knew. By Wanderlove, Chapter 5. I know something you don't know! Quinlan Voss crows in his sing-song voice, vibrating with smug glee. Obi-Wan regards him evenly over his cup of tzai, raising a single unimpressed eyebrow. He's ensconced in his and Anakin's quarters, a datapad in his hands, as he finishes a report on their latest mission, and decides how best to dance around the fact that they were 2 days late to the expected rendezvous because his 16-year-old Padawan had been busy on a side quest to the seedier underbelly of Thespius to meet and arrange further transportation for some friendship shmee. Obi-Wan truly doesn't know anymore. He left the room at that point in the comm call. He and Anakin have an unspoken understanding. Anakin doesn't talk about his work, and in return, Obi-Wan does his best not to notice the forged papers, the slightly shady credit acquisitions, and abrupt, unexplained side trips. It's so much easier to feign innocence to a council of talented Force sensitives when he can honestly say, "Who, me? I wasn't anyone near that unfortunate incident," and "I don't actually know where Anakin was, I was letting him spread his wings." And if he specifically requests missions to certain planets that are often along known smuggling routes, draws out their negotiations out much, much longer than is reasonable, assuages their host's suspicions with a wave of his hand, carefully passes Anakin a small sum from their mission credit account, always just small enough to remain unnoticed, well, the council has never asked. He just always has to strike the right balance when writing their reports, the exact tone of which he hasn't quite hit upon for this particular go-around. "Why, hello to you too, Quinn," he says mildly. "Thank you for knocking. Of course you can come on in." "You'll be thanking me soon enough," he says, batting away Obi-Wan's sarcasm with an ease born of years of practice. "Guess who just unseated Master Nieto as the anointed MILK? "Well, hasn't he held that Master I'd like to quiff title since we were Padawans?" "Uh-huh," Quinlan sounded, if possible, even more smug now that he'd gotten Obi-Wan to engage. "Over 11 years! Now guess!" "Please, don't tell me it's you!" Obi-Wan groans, unable to think of a single other reason for Quinn's inseparable glee. "Wait, how do you even know this? I feel like when we were Padawans, we made sure to keep the voting process very hush-hush." "Isla and I have an agreement," Quinlan says with a wave. "She keeps me supplied in gossip. I keep her out of her monthly archival duty rotations." "Quinn!" Obi-Wan scolds. He takes another long sip of his tzai. "Oh, Sith Hells, you're focusing on all the wrong things. You're no fun, Obi-Wan. It's you!" Obi-Wan spits out his tea, and Quinlan booms with laughter. "Please?" Obi-Wan says faintly once he's recovered. "Please tell me you're joking." "Nope," Quinlan responds, popping the pea. "Isla says it was near unanimous too." I can't... What? Force has really made my week, my year, if I'm being honest. I've accomplished my Padawan self's dream of actually criffing the MILK. Speaking of which, how about a celebratory turn, eh, Obi-Wan? Quinlan hints with a lascivious eyebrow wiggle. Obi-Wan just blinks at him, decidedly not turned on. "Why did I ever sleep with you?" he wonders aloud. "Because you're really horny after a good sport and I happen to be there?" Quinlan suggests, completely unbothered. It takes a lot to ruffle Quinlan's laid-back equanimity. The other Jedi collapses on the couch beside Obi-Wan with an over-exaggerated movement, leaning back into the cushions with a happy sound. "Who won the other categories? Did you get anything?" Obi-Wan asks, turning most of his attention back to his datapad. He has fond memories of voting, debating, and organizing the annual Master Superlatives, absolutely convinced of the event's secrecy, as if every Jedi Knight hadn't been a Padawan at some point and didn't know full well what was going on. Some Masters and Knights even launched discrete campaigns for specific titles, deploying their Padawans to drum up support. Only most likely to give Master Windu a stress ulcer," Quinlan moans. "Cheer up," Obi-Wan responds serenely. "Once Anakin is knighted, he'll sweep that category, and you'll no longer have to worry about it." "Oh, good point," Quinlan chuckled. "Speaking of knighting, I just got out of a meditation session with Master Yoda. He thinks Isla might be ready. She's going to be assigned a solo mission to Ord Mantell, and if it's successful, it'll count towards her trials." "This is great news! I'm so excited for you both!" Obi-Wan exclaims, laying down his datapad. He cocks his head, noticing Quinlan's apparent unease. Unless, do you not think she's ready? No, Quinlan protests hurriedly. I know she'll pass with flying colors. It's just hard, you know? We're told not to be attached, but she's been here with me almost every waking moment of the past 11 years. And I'm just supposed to let that go? Just accept our missions on the opposite sides of the galaxy? Only seeing her every few months or so for tea and well wishes? It won't be the same. Obi-Wan is suddenly viscerally grateful that Anakin is nowhere near ready for knighthood. It won't be the same. Obi-Wan ventures, unsure of how to offer comfort for something he himself has never experienced. He thinks to his infrequent con calls with Shmi and her description of the bittersweet experience watching her son grow up from afar. But perhaps it will still be good in its own way. Quinlan stares at him, considering. Then his face scrunches up. Oh, Force! Keep that vaguely wise nonsense up and you're gonna be on the High Council one day, he grunts. Hey, Amioka and a counselor, no fair! Obi-Wan resists the urge to flick Quinlan, as if they were younglings arguing in the creche again. Luckily, teaching Anakin has done wonders for Obi-Wan's self-restraint. Come now, let us try and distract you from these thoughts. Let's spar, Obi-Wan says instead, setting the datapad aside and standing to his feet. Sparring? Do we not just agree that spars get you hot and bothered? Are you trying to tell me something, Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan just rolls his eyes, grabs his saber, and begins walking out of the apartment. Quinlan jumps up to follow, running to catch up, and still laughing at his own joke. They make for the nearest training salle, the engineered-to-be-perfect late Coruscant afternoon sunlight shining across the impossibly wide marble columns lining the halls. The salle is busy when they arrive. Late afternoon right before mealtime is one of the most popular times for knights to hone their skill with a lightsaber, or for Padawans to show off for a potential master. Today, it appears Master Yoda has taken a class of non-initiates on a field trip, and the space is filled with rambunctious, wide-eyed younglings of all species, watching knights spar, chasing each other around the hall, and, for a few particularly spanky ones, actually approaching the older Padawans and knights to talk. One initiate in particular has caught Obi-Wan's attention, a young skinny-throw tzai, her montrals little more than nubs, who is currently hanging upside down from Anakin's arm as he tries to shake her off. Obi-Wan wonders at what Anakin did to land himself in this situation, and based on the look on his Padawan's face, it appears he is wondering much the same thing. Obi-Wan smiles and tilts his head to direct Quinlan's attention to the adorable sight. Quinlan laughs out loud, and as one, they change directions to intercept Anakin. Well, hello there, little one, Obi-Wan greets when they are close enough. Both the Togrutas and Anakin's heads snap up, curiosity in her gaze and relief in Anakin's. Who are you, and what might you be doing to my poor Padawan? I'm Ahsoka, the girl chirps, and I'm helping him. Obi-Wan raises both of his eyebrows, glancing to Anakin, who is now silently pleading with him to help. A corner of Obi-Wan's lips squirk. Oh, you know. And how are you helping him? Master Yoda said that performing katas with an extra weight attached would help me improve my balance and focus. He volunteered Ahsoka for the job, Anakin grumbles. He said it's a time-honored Jedi tradition. And you were too scared to call Bantha shit on him, Obi-Wan surmises wryly. The next thing he knows, his shins are erupting in the stinging pain of a solid gimmer-stick whack. Disrespect traditions you should not, Master Yoda says sternly. Nearby, Quinlan has lost it, bent over nearly in half as he wheezes out silent guffaws. Obi-Wan winces. Sorry, Master, he apologizes. Master Yoda replies, not quite a complete acceptance or a complete rejection. A fine job your Padawan has done. I'm proud you should be. Obi-Wan relaxes at the praise. Perhaps Master Yoda has already forgiven his earlier transgression. And me? Ahsoka demands from her perch. Master Yoda glances up, smiling. A wonderful job you have done. Persistence and bravery you have demonstrated, he says, a twinkle in his eyes. Ahsoka beams. Then for now you are to your clanmate's goal. Ahsoka lets go of Anakin's arm and lands on her feet with Loth cat-like grace. She flashes a cute smile at him. You're welcome, Sky Guy, she says, spinning around to scamper back towards the other initiates. Too late to unsubstantial your stances are, Yoda continues once she's gone. With her weight, correct your stance you did. To replicate this without her presence, your task is known. Thank you, Master, Anakin says, folding his hands together and bowing low. Master Yoda nods and turns back to Obi-Wan regarding the young knight for a moment.
And what title you have, I hear. Congratulations, you have.
The little troll says with a cackle. Oh, he definitely hasn't forgiven me yet. Obi-Wan despairs as he silently prays for the floor to swallow him all. As the week continues, Obi-Wan's embarrassment only gets worse. All the other knights and masters are insufferable about the whole thing, offering chuckling, backslapping congratulations. Teasing other knights about their awards is almost as much a part of the superlatives as the actual event itself. Obi-Wan had been only too happy to accept their ribbing and even join in when all he had ever won before was most likely to be mistaken for a Padawan just 3 months after his knighting. He laughed it off then and promptly began growing out his beard. But MILK was a far more high-profile award, and it's not like it's even for something he did.
You know?
Bant had said to him pityingly after he'd spent an entire day hiding in the halls of healing.
I think half the reason everyone gives you such banter shit is because you react so badly. You're so humble and you never let us give you any sort of recognition for the bigger things, so we're all just relisting the chance to shove this one in your face. And the more you protest, the more everyone's going to try and make sure you see that you deserve it.
Obi-Wan had only been able to bow. If his oldest friend wasn't on his side, what hope did he have? Even Anakin had proven to be absolutely insufferable about the whole thing. Puffing was just with pride and jealously hovering over Obi-Wan during every mealtime and meditation session, as if some stray initiate with stars in their eyes would come to steal him away. The last straw comes as he checks out an old geopolitical history tome from the archives. Madame Jocasta looks him up and down and informs him that Master Dooku had won the honor back when he was still a part of the Jedi Order, and so had Mr. Qui-Gon once upon a time.
They would be proud to see you carrying on a lineage tradition,
she tells him before her eyes go fond and distant.
Your mistress so handsome and charming, and oh, did he know it?
Obi-Wan clutches the flimsy blast to his chest and darts into a side corridor to escape. He takes the next couple of twists and turns at breakneck speed, hoping to lose the archives before she can launch into another retelling of her torrid affair with Dooku when they were both Padawans. Obi-Wan really doesn't need to know about how acrobatic his Grandmaster was. He nearly runs smack dab into Anakin, who is hunched over and frowning at a hollow book, shaping the words in a slowly silent whisper. Anakin had gotten a lot better with written basics since first coming to the temple, the result of years of hard work and extra tutoring. It had been such a fun realization in those first few weeks after Ryloth that the reason his Padawan hadn't been finishing his required readings and essays was because slaves weren't taught to craft and read! Thanks again for the heads up, a wise and learned Jedi High Council! However, while he is now perfectly capable of reading silently, Anakin still prefers to hear the words aloud, says it reminds him of the oral histories the grandmothers and grandfathers of the Mos Espa slave quarters used to recite every night. Anakin looks up and freezes. Obi-Wan freezes as well, desperately praying that Madame Jocasta doesn't follow him and continue her fun recollections.
Master, why are you hiding? I'm not... Why would you ask... Wait, is that a copy of Ravan's Poetic Meditations?
Maybe. Anakin hedges. Obi-Wan frowns.
I thought that was forbidden for Padawans. It's one of your favorites, though. Yes, but I'm not a Padawan. Does Madame Jocasta know you're reading that?
Does Madame Jocasta know that you're hiding from her in the poetry section? Anakin challenges. Obi-Wan rolls his eyes.
Are you trying to imply that you'll call her over here and expose us both?
That's a terrible bluff, you know. I may get a short scolding and some momentary discomfort, but I don't even want to know what she'd do to a Padawan caught reading heretical love poems. Anakin scowls and slouches down further in the reading armchair. Obi-Wan settles down in the armchair opposite, unable to contain his curiosity.
Why are you reading that? I didn't get the sense that you really like written poetry.
I don't, but you do. I guess I was trying to figure out what all the fuss was about. Anakin pauses, bites his lip, and then looks to Obi-Wan, strangely shy all of a sudden.
Would you like me to read some of it to you, like aloud? Oh, if you wouldn't mind, that would be lovely.
Anakin radiates satisfaction as he flips to a particularly, passionate sonnet. It's not the poem Obi-Wan would have picked if Qui-Gon had ever asked him to read poetry aloud, but he supposes that everyone has their own preferences. Obi-Wan listens with half an ear. This is the third time this month that Anakin has offered to recite aloud some of Obi-Wan's favorite works. He doesn't know what has inspired this bout of intellectualism in Anakin, but he finds that he quite likes it. Despite himself, Obi-Wan enjoys the afternoon. Anakin has a beautiful voice, now that it has finally stopped cracking, and he does enjoy Ravan's poetic meditations, even the racier one that Anakin's chosen. When it's over, his shoulders are looser than they've been in days, and he cheerily suggests a trip back to the training salles. And yes, okay, he and Anakin spent a frightening proportion of their time planetside in the salles, but in his defense, it's one of maybe 3 ways that could be reliably counted on to exhaust Anakin's boundless energy. He regrets his decision as soon as they arrive. In the peace of the last few hours, he has somehow managed to forget one of the most annoying parts of the whole MILK ordeal. The gaggle of wide-eyed Padawans and initiates who now follow him everywhere he goes. When Obi-Wan goes to remove his tunics, as he usually does for their spars, it sets off a fresh round of oohs and ahs from their audience. Anakin and Obi-Wan turn a similar shade of pink. Cover up, Anakin growls, stomping over angrily to shove the tunics back into Obi-Wan's arms. Obi-Wan is too relieved to even rebuke Anakin for his tone, hastily putting his linen undershirt over his head. Neither of them miss the faint sighs of disappointment that follow this movement. A few more days, and things have mostly returned to an even keel, the well-wishers and gawkers starting to trickle off, and Obi-Wan's state of perpetual full-body embarrassment now reduced to only an occasional blush or two. He starts to feel less like a tauntaun in a zoo when he ventures to the salles, as all the younglings find other responsibilities and duties to take up their time. Except for Ahsoka, who has somehow intuited their training schedule and joins them every morning and afternoon in the training salles, sitting cross-legged to the side as she watches them with rapt attention. In her defense, she seems to do this more to watch Anakin rather than stalk Obi-Wan, so he doesn't let it bother him too much. Today, they have gotten up particularly early and have moved to one of the smaller meditation halls to engage in a moving meditation session, a blend of Nimdara, temple katas, and Obi-Wan's own inventions that they have perfected over the years to suit Anakin's needs. They still try traditional meditation every now and then as a gesture of peace for the more traditional members of the council who frown fiercely every time they witness one of Anakin's meditation sessions, but as Obi-Wan suspected all those years ago, movement seems to be the only way to truly calm the noise in Anakin's head. And after Healer Jakar, Anakin's mind healer, had confirmed that the moving meditation sessions were an excellent way for Anakin to process and handle emotional turmoil that had shut up the loudest of their detractors. Somehow, despite the early hour and the change in location, Ahsoka is waiting for them. She looks up as they arrive, expectant and impatient. She notices the lack of sabers at their belts and frowns. She silently watches as they remove their outer robes and slowly begin to stretch. Anakin drops the first few layers of his shields, opening himself up to the Force and to Obi-Wan. He'll never admit it, but this is Obi-Wan's favorite part of these meditations, and he basks in the moment like a tuca stretching in the sunlight. While particularly strong emotions can still bleed across, and Anakin has no problem using their connection for voluntary communication, the bond no longer sings with all of Anakin's conscious and unconscious thoughts. Anakin has kept his mind tightly shielded ever since he perfected his shields at age 14. The Temple Masters really started emphasizing shield work around puberty, for obvious reasons. A perpetually ornate teenage, force-sensitive, constantly projecting their every thought and emotion into the world is a terrible idea. Only allowing Obi-Wan even halfway deep during their meditation sessions is still stronger than most Master-padawan bonds, but Obi-Wan is ashamed to admit that he misses the feeling of Anakin in his mind. They close their eyes and move as one. It's not really a kata, with a prescribed set of movements. It's more about opening oneself up and going where the Force wills, following ebbs and flows in the currents around them. There is no thinking, only doing, as Obi-Wan extends a leg and pushes his arm away, then pauses and listens to the whispers of the Force, bringing it back to center. Occasionally, Obi-Wan will use the open bond to nudge Anakin, to silently remind him to focus on the here and now, or release a certain feeling to the Force, but for the most part, it is just a matter of being. They sink deep into themselves and the Force, and once satisfied with Anakin's progress, Obi-Wan begins to carefully lead them out of the depths like a suitless swimmer slowly rising to the surface to avoid sudden pressure changes. Obi-Wan's consciousness slowly comes back to the here and now, his soul at peace.
What was that?
Ahsoka asks curiously, her voice crackling loudly across the stillness of the room. Anakin opens his own eyes and looks to Obi-Wan for confirmation. He shrugs, allowing Anakin to make the call.
It's a form of meditation,
Anakin says finally. Ahsoka stands, walking toward them to evaluate them critically.
It's not like any meditation I've ever seen,
she says doubtfully. Yeah, probably not. It's an adaptation. Master Obi-Wan says everyone learns differently, and this is what works best for me.
Huh!
Ahsoka says. She considers this for a moment.
Do you think I could learn?
Sure, he replies easily, as Obi-Wan watches with no small amount of amusement. He has a feeling of what's coming next, and knows that his Padawan has completely misunderstood the initiate's question.
Oh, good, you'll teach me then?
Wait! No, that's not what I meant! Anakin sputters, taken aback. He looks wildly to Obi-Wan for backup, but Obi-Wan only pastes a bland smile on his face. Anakin narrows his eyes. Traitor! He hisses across the bond.
Why not?
Ahsoka pouts.
I'm a good student. Everyone said so, even Master Yoda. I'll be good, I promise.
I don't. I'm really busy with my training and Padawan duties. Plus, I've never taught anyone before, so I wouldn't have the first clue what I'm supposed to do. Anakin replies, both of which are technically true, but all senior Padawans are required to spend at least 1 week of every month helping out around the temple, and since beginning his rotations with the crèche, Anakin has been a smash hit with the younglings. He's patient with them in a way he rarely is for other aspects of life, and enjoys inventing sweet stories and simple, energetic games that will capture their attention. Honestly, if it wasn't for Anakin's love of saber training and determination to change the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, Obi-Wan thinks he would have made an excellent crèche master. Ahsoka turns to Obi-Wan and he holds his arms up, palms facing outward in a universal gesture of surrender. Don't look at me, he says, eyes sparkling. This is between you two.
Just you wait, I'll convince you,
she hums, marching off determinedly. Anakin watches her go with something akin to horror in his eyes. I was never that bad as a youngling, Anakin says, frowning. Obi-Wan smiles and claps him on the back as they gather their robes and begin the walk back to their quarters. I think you are misremembering your youth, Padawan mine, he responds. Anakin scowls, looking as if he is ready to protest. Don't even try, mister. I was arrested for illegal street racing. You're never going to let that one go, are you? Anakin sighs. 1. I seem to remember having to pick you up from Corsac 5 times. 4. The 5th time doesn't count. Anakin laughs and bumps shoulders with him companionably. Obi-Wan looks over to him and is disoriented to remember that he no longer needs to look down. Anakin is just a smidge taller than his old master, but if his continually voracious appetite is any indication, he'll soon continue his growth spurt and surpass his master by leaps and bounds. Obi-Wan sighs to himself. He's not even short by human male standards. It's just that he has had the terrible misfortune of being surrounded by freakishly tall people his whole life. He blames Qui-Gon. He's not sure how, but this is definitely Qui-Gon's fault. Somehow. Oh, and why is that? Obi-Wan asks, keeping up his part of the banter. Because technically I had gotten away cleanly that time. I just got picked up for something else a few days later, and the booking officer happened to recognize me. Anakin declares, Oh, Anakin, you are truly a master at getting caught. Is this why your plans always somehow involve me getting caught? I have no idea what you're talking about, my very young Padawan. Obi-Wan responds airily. Real consternation flares to life across the bond for a quick moment, before it is quickly smothered. Obi-Wan almost pauses in confusion, unsure what he said that prompted such frustration, but then returns to their easy sniping. Come, we should get some breakfast in you before your session with Healer Jakai. I would not want him to ever have to deal with you when you're on an empty stomach. You just like to make fun of my appetite because you know it means I'm about to have another growth spurt. Anakin retorts. He grins, putting on a voice of mock solemnity. You know, maybe I should talk to Jailer Jakai about it. It's an awfully heavy burden, knowing that I shall soon dwarf my poor short master. However, we'll let go. Ha ha, you're hilarious, Padawan. Secretly, Obi-Wan is just relieved that this is something they could joke about nowadays. During the first few months, Anakin's visits with healer tzai were a source of sullen, stony silences, and Obi-Wan had half despaired that he had made the wrong call, that the visits were doing more harm than good. But ever so slowly, Anakin has come to resent his visits less and less, and then very suddenly, in the last half a year, look forward to them! Obi-Wan doesn't know what they discuss. Anakin's never volunteered the information, and he doesn't press, even on those days when Anakin comes back drained and heavy-hearted, and all Obi-Wan can do is prepare him a steaming hot cup of comforting tzai. Whatever it is, these days his Padawan seems more balanced, less prone to angry outbursts or ill-thought-out tantrums. Well, he's Anakin, so there are outbursts and tantrums aplenty, but they seem different somehow. The word that comes to mind is shallow, as if previously there had been this well of darkness simmering just beneath Anakin's emotional explosions. Before, Obi-Wan never quite knew what to do or expect, but now he can see through the clear waters to the bottom not far below, and knows the storms will pass. Tell Healer Jakar hello for me, and please, for the love of the Force, don't be late to your galactic history course again. No promises, Anakin says stealthily, disappearing around the corner. True to her word, Ahsoka eventually wears Anakin down, and he reluctantly offers her a few lessons on moving meditation. He lasts longer than Obi-Wan had first guessed. It's more than a year, closer to 2 before he yields. Though Obi-Wan supposes the constant mission deployments and lack of time spent at the temple certainly help. The galaxy is getting restless, whispers of war everywhere, and the Jedi can barely keep up, the number and danger of their missions increasing in equal measure. Even new inexperienced knights like Ayla are being sent out on treacherous forays to half-wild planets, and Obi-Wan has had to talk Quinn down from stealing a ship from the temple hangar to follow her too many times. The increased danger and darkness clouding the Force makes Obi-Wan nervous, especially as the years go on and Anakin's knighting begins to take shape. He's not ready, not quite yet, no matter what Anakin claims. But soon, maybe another few years, Obi-Wan simply can't imagine knighting his Padawan in this new, darker galaxy. Knowing his Padawan, Anakin will probably throw all caution to the wind and just sashay straight into danger, only this time Obi-Wan will not be there to watch his back. He shakes his head to dispel his dark thoughts and refocuses on the council in front of him. He promised Anakin that he would stop by the meditation halls to observe Ahsoka's progress after almost a full year of lessons. Anakin is adorably concerned with making sure he's being a good teacher, but probably also thinks this will help his very, very, very determined campaign to convince Obi-Wan that he is ready for knighthood at age 19. However, if Obi-Wan wants to make it in time, he'll have to hurry the council along. They're certainly not going to do it without his help.
For the mission off-planet, you have petitioned,
Master Yoda says, opening the conversation with the council as he is wont to do. Yes, Masters, my Padawan and I have been on planet for a long time, recovering from our last mission as per the healer's orders, but it is now time for us to venture out again. Really? And this wouldn't have anything to do with a certain Padawan voting event happening next week, Master Bilbo says, a smile threatened to break out on her face. The other counselors seem to be finding similar signs of amusement. Obi-Wan winces internally, as usual. Master Bilbo is not wrong. The annual Master Superlatives are set to be released to the Padawans in a few days, and Obi-Wan needs to be off-planet before that happens. He's won MILK for 2 years in a row now, and he has a sinking suspicion that it's about to become 3. As a senior Padawan, Anakin is most likely on the super-secret committee that tallies the votes, and he has been acting suspiciously smug the past few days. And really, whoever had thought that Anakin would be a good idea to help run a supposedly top secret event clearly either didn't really want to keep sentiment secret or had ingested a few too many of Master Yoda's mushrooms. Obi-Wan's not hiding, no matter what Bantha Quinn say. He's just making a strategic retreat. It is difficult to stay cooped up on planet for long stretches, is all he offers. A snort echoes from an unknown counselor somewhere behind Obi-Wan. He politely chooses not to comment. There are only 2 available at the moment that are appropriate for yours and the Anakin Skywalker's strengths, Master Koth says. Obi-Wan nods. That's council code for We have other missions, but it will be a call to on Mustafar before we ever give Skywalker an undercover mission assignment again. Once was enough, the Force!
There is a murder dispute on Ancion and a security and investigation assignment for a high-profile senator.
Master Windu explains.
I'm sure either would be fine, Obi-Wan responds, but I'm not sure a third trip to Ancion would be helpful for either party. If our first two attempts to mediate a resolution to the conflict failed, I'm not sure this time would make any difference. Which senator? Senator Amidala of Naboo.
Master Windu's voice is strangely slow, reluctant. He won't meet Obi-Wan's eyes, and this is the moment Obi-Wan's hackles raise.
Her passionate opposition to the Military Creation Act has led to some disturbing death threats and incidences. She was preparing to travel back to Coruscant soon, and the security personnel fear that their countermeasures may not be sufficient to counter the threat.
She is determined not to accept Jedi protection, Master Gallia continues. Fears what the optics of hiding behind the bodyguards might do for the cause, but it was suggested that as an old friend and ally, your presence might be less intrusive.
It's a reasonable argument,
Obi-Wan says warmly.
Why the reluctance? The Chancellor specifically recommended you and Skywalker take the assignment,
Master Windu finally says after a long pause. Obi-Wan's head snaps up, eyes narrowed. Despite his belief many years ago that the Chancellor would immediately listen to the Council and cease contact with Anakin without argument, he hadn't. Instead, he'd strongly resisted their separation decree, pushing and pushing for weeks, months, until Master Windu had snapped and explicitly threatened to go to the press. Palpatine's reluctance to surrender had discomfited Obi-Wan and the Council, even those members who had initially counseled restraint, sure that it had all been a misunderstanding, an overzealous politician getting a little too friendly in his attempts to nurture a promising young boy. The Council has never quite looked at the Chancellor the same way. Sure, they'd worked with him for the good of the Republic, but they noticeably cooled towards him to such a degree that even outsiders like Senator Organa had commented on the matter. There's even been some debate over whether or not to inform the general public once Palpatine leaves office in a few short months. Master Plo Koon has been a particular advocate of this strategy. What of all the junior apprentice legislators and senatorial aides who do not have the entire Jedi Order to act a shield between them and a clearly disturbed man? And has been ever since the issue first came to light. He's only become more vocal now that Anakin has reached the age of majority, as the only real opposition to his strategy had come from the fact that it would be impossible to conceal Anakin's identity. There really weren't very many Padawans who interacted with the Senate. Few were still with the Chancellor of the Republic, and Anakin had gone from visiting the Chancellor nearly every month to not at all overnight. It really wasn't a difficult leap for a determined political reporter with access to Senate security cams. Well then, Obi-Wan said in a clipped voice breaking the tense silence, I think it is best we go to Ancion then. If my memory serves me right, Senator Amidala is more than capable of defending herself, should she feel threatened.
Our thoughts exactly,
Master Plo Koon responds.
You'll find the briefing on your datapad. May the Force be with you.
Obi-Wan bows his head in acknowledgement and beats a hasty retreat out of the council chambers. Though not too hasty, Obi-Wan is not trying to be disrespectful. He just lengthens his strides a tad and glances down at his pad, skimming over the mission report and pretending to give it intense concentration to draw their attention away from the pace of his exit. As soon as the doors close behind him, he tucks the datapad away and manages to make up for lost time with a truly impressive sprint through the temple. He takes a crucial few minutes to recompose himself outside of the meditation rooms. He's always lecturing Anakin on maintaining a Jedi-like comportment. After catching him running recklessly through the halls, and Anakin would revel in the chance to poke holes in his lectures. He opens the doors once he is sure the flush has faded from his cheeks and is greeted with the sight of Ahsoka and Anakin moving fluidly through a meditation session on the floor in front of him. Anakin's top shield layers are down again, projecting overwhelming waves of peace and harmony. Obi-Wan winces. Anakin is trying to be helpful, he thinks, to project calm the way Obi-Wan does for him, but because he's Anakin, it's less like calm and more like someone decided to take up a gimmer stick and beat the feelings into his surroundings. Be peaceful! Be calm! Find solace! Shouted into the void. Obi-Wan carefully sinks into his bond with Anakin and knocks politely, waiting for Anakin to notice him. His shields are constantly shifting and ever-changing, like a powerful sandstorm enveloping his whole being, but Obi-Wan just waits. Sure enough, Anakin notices him, and slowly the storm begins to calm in one small portion of his shields, a perfectly Obi-Wan-shaped doorway. "You need to stop projecting," Obi-Wan informs him once inside. "It can be distracting if you're not used to it." Whoops. No worries, you were doing fine apart from that. Obi-Wan withdraws and watches as Anakin's brow furrows in concentration, the feeling of a crashing tsunami of peace muting to a tolerable level. Anakin stretches out a few feelers into the Force, and his brow smooths over once more, leading Ahsoka through the rest of the session with poise and patience. "Well done," Obi-Wan says once Anakin and Ahsoka finish. Ahsoka beams and hurries to pack up her belongings. They went a little longer than anticipated, likely waiting for Obi-Wan, and she's running late for her lessons. "Thanks, Master Kenobi," she chirps happily as she disappears. "See you, Sky Guy." Anakin beams back and turns to Obi-Wan with a shifty look in his eyes. "She's really talented, you know," he confides, "even if she can get a little snippy sometimes. I think you two would work well together." It seems that pointers were not the only reason he was invited to this meditation session. Bless his Padawan's little heart. "Trying to fob me off on another apprentice so soon?" "I mean, not yet, obviously, but in a few more years you'll be a free knight," Anakin hints, subtle as a black and dark green. At Obi-Wan's unimpressed look, he corrects himself. "Probably. She'll be ready by then, and I've heard Master Yoda saying that she'll need an unconventional master. I think he's trying to play matchmaker." "He does like to do that," Obi-Wan agrees wryly. He debates laying out his suspicions explicitly, then decides it will be much more amusing to hint at it and see how long it takes Anakin to catch up. "Somehow, I don't think I was the unconventional master he was referring to." "Really? Who else do you think he could be? Has another knight said something?" Anakin continues, oblivious. A storm passes over his face, his eyebrows slanting down violently. "You should really tell me. I don't think just anybody would be a good fit. I don't think just anybody would be good enough for her." "Oh, there's no need for that. As you said, we have a few more years, and I think Master Yoda will make his intentions clear when the time is right. Besides, you'll not have any time to worry about it for now. We've just been assigned a mission. A border dispute on Ancion." "Again!" Anakin groans. "Haven't we been there at least 3 times already? I swear to the Force if it's the same 11-kilometer strip of swampland." "Look at it this way," Obi-Wan says very reasonably, and thinks, "You're making friends. The Prime Minister apparently remembered your name." "Ugh, don't tell me he specifically requested us." Obi-Wan says nothing. Technically not, but he knows Anakin will take his silence as agreement. "Supposedly Ancion is in the midst of its most beautiful season. We've never visited during this point in that orbital period," is what Obi-Wan finally goes with. Anakin snorts. "Yeah, okay. Slightly less gray and cloudy for Ancion is still pretty gray and cloudy." "Be grateful, my dear Padawan. It may be dreary, but at least Ancion doesn't have any sand." Anakin's face twists, his dislike of the overcast skies of Ancion briefly warring with his intense hatred of sand. Obi-Wan is unable to stop his chuckle. "Oh, my young Padawan, you're so predictable. If I ever needed to hide something from you, I would just bury it under a mountain of sand." A flash of annoyance crosses Anakin's face, breaking the easy back and forth. Obi-Wan jerks back physically, feeling as if he has missed in a step in a kata that he's known to have his life. "I'm not that young, you know," Anakin says. His voice is firm, authoritative. "Of course," Obi-Wan responds, bemused. He grasps for some way to restore Anakin's early good humor. "I only meant that compared to me, your old decrepit master, you are very young indeed." "If anything, Anakin frowns harder." "You're not old," he insists, "and I'm not that much younger than you." "I'm nearly double your age, Anakin." At this point, Obi-Wan is completely perplexed. "Yeah, but aren't you and Master Yoda always telling me that age and experience are 2 different things? I've been on more important and dangerous missions than any other Padawan my age. More than most knights!" Now Obi-Wan's annoyance flares to match Anakin's. He'd asked me once if Anakin's sudden loud insistence on being considered a mature adult ready for knighthood was a consequence of his upbringing on Tatooine. Perhaps they marked the transition from child to adult differently, but Shmi had only shaken her head and quirked a corner of her lips. He'd tried discussing the issue with Anakin, explaining why he believed Anakin was not quite ready for knighthood multiple times. But no matter how he tries to break it down, his apprentice keeps bringing it up over and over and over again. Enough, Anakin! Obi-Wan says, harsher than he means to. We've had this discussion too many times. You're not ready for the trials, and that's all I'll say on the matter for right now. It's too early in the morning for this. Anakin looks mutinous, but he clenches a fist and expels his boiling frustration into the Force. They both inhale and exhale for 2 seconds, staring each other down. Obi-Wan closes his eyes and recollects himself. When he opens his eyes again, he pastes on a gentle, carefully constructed smile and a kind, teasing tone. At any rate, we'll need to spend the rest of the day preparing and reviewing the brief together. It's extensive and a little dry. Anakin pauses, evaluates, and then seems to decide to just take the olive branch. Oh, come on. Master Mundi made the mission briefing too. He growls, though his usual overblown dramatics are muted. A little force. Ki Adimundi's voluminous briefings are legendary. Wow, someone on the council must really have it out for us this time around. What did I ever do to Master Windu to deserve this? Do you want the short list or the long list? Obi-Wan says, lips twitching with relief this time. It works, as hoped, pulling Anakin out of his dark mood as quickly as he descended into it. Hey! You totally helped with the whole speeder thing last month. I was not helping. Oh, come on, Master. You're telling me it was a complete coincidence you decided to engage Master Windu in an intense discussion on the ethical and logistical challenges of installing a Silurian poison garden in the temple, just when I needed a couple more minutes to make a clean getaway. It would be an excellent addition to the temple gardenscape. It'll add some variety. Obi-Wan insists innocently. No more of your complaints, young one. You have a lot to take care of before we leave. Not that young, Anakin reminds him as he disappears around the next column. But when we land and it's still just as dim and human and terrible as ever, you'll see I'm right. We will see. There is a distinct possibility that Anakin is wrong. He'd been wrong plenty of times before, after all. Anakin is right! Obi-Wan says to himself. As much as he enjoys teasing his Padawan, he really doesn't like these missions, or the planet any more than Anakin himself. On top of being right about the weather, Anakin is also right about why the Ancionian central government has requested Jedi help. They are still arguing over the same 11-kilometer stretch of swampland! It's really more of a cultural dispute than a border one. The nomadic Alwari don't really understand the concept of borders, which makes the problem difficult, if not impossible to solve, if neither side is willing to even entertain their counterpoint's point of view. It's a frustrating day, which very nearly ends with Obi-Wan snapping at the government negotiation team until Anakin halfway opens his shields, almost as if he is engaged in a meditation session, and hesitantly projects calm worry. Obi-Wan inhales deeply, restrains himself, and offers his thanks. Obi-Wan beams with pride and chooses to leave his top shield layers lowered for the rest of the day. It's only in the space around the bond. The rest of his shields are still as strong as ever, and so Obi-Wan knows that this is a deliberate choice. Obi-Wan restrains a smile. The nomadic people who lay claim to the swamp are going on and on about the unfair slights perpetuated on them over hundreds of years, and it would be very undiplomatic to suddenly interrupt their rant with his happiness. And feeds a feeling of fond warmth. I missed this across the bond as a thank you. Anakin is not nearly as successful at restraining his facial expression, unfortunately, and Obi-Wan is forced to spend the next hour explaining away Anakin's maniacal smile to their hosts. When he finally makes it to his room, after sitting through the rest of the negotiations, and then having to make idle chit-chat for an interminable diplomatic banquet, he cannot even be bothered to attempt his evening meditation. He bats away Anakin's pointed amusement. Yes, I know. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm giving you a free pass on meditation. Just take it and go to bed. Obi-Wan grumbles in return. He's asleep before Anakin has fully left the room. Hours later, pain and terror abruptly pull Obi-Wan from his sleep. He lies perfectly still for a moment, panting and staring at the ceiling in half-asleep confusion, not quite sure what is happening. Then another spike, and he is rolling out of bed, scrambling to his feet, not even bothering with boots or tabards as he sprints across the hall to Anakin's room. There's no thought, only instinct. He skids to a stop at Anakin's bedside, where his Padawan lies, perfectly rigid, face contorted in a rictus of pain. "Anakin, wake up!" Obi-Wan whispers shouts, both in the real world and across their bond. He grips Anakin's shoulders and shakes. "Anakin, dear one, wake up! You need to wake up!" All at once, Anakin's eyes snap open, and he sits bolt upright, half panting, half sobbing. He seems disoriented for a moment, and Obi-Wan squeezes his shoulders to ground him. One of Anakin's hands flies upward, and he covers Obi-Wan's hand with his own. I saw..." Anakin can barely speak. "Shush." Obi-Wan soothes, used to this routine by now, even if this one seems worse than normal. "Don't try to speak just yet. You need to calm down. It was just a dream. I'm here. You're safe." "You don't understand." Anakin gasps. She was begging me for help and I couldn't. I couldn't do anything. I have to do something. I can't. Anakin, calm down, please. Who is she?" Anakin looks up to Obi-Wan with wide eyes and tear-stained cheeks, and Obi-Wan's heart drops to the bottom of his feet. There is only one person in the galaxy whose pain and suffering would cause this level of distress. "I saw... It's my mother."